Welcome back to my channel. In the previous video, we looked at low and high level programming language. Just to recap really quickly, we looked at what is high level, what is low level programming language. We looked at benefits, we looked at limitations, and we also looked at examples. I hope you learned something from that lesson. So today we're going to be looking at syntax versus semantics. What is syntax? Now, syntax is the precise way that a computer program must be written for it to be understood. Remember that in writing your program, there are rules for bringing together all the elements. Failure to comply with the rules will produce an error, and the program will not run because the compiler or the interpreter will not understand the code. Right? So the syntax therefore enables the program to be correctly structured. By not following the rules that controls the structure of the symbols, the punctuation, and the word of a program, you're going to end up with an error. Okay, so the purpose of syntax, it allows the programmer to create a correctly structured statement. All right, now remember also that every language has its own set of rules. In English language, they say the subject must agree with the verb, right? In programming, Java, C++, and Python, they are case sensitive. And so in declaring your variable, if you declared, let's for argument's sake say you have the word morning, and you declared it as with a beginning with a capital M. Throughout your program, your statements must have the word morning with a capital letter. Otherwise, your compiler is not going to recognize it, and it's going to return an error in your program. Right? So when you go to run the program, the compiler is going to return an error because it does not recognize that. So simple things like declaring your variables in one way and writing it in another way throughout your program is going to cause you to return, the compiler to return an error. So if you begin the word with a capital letter when declaring the variable, remember to write it throughout the statement, throughout the program, your statements using that capital letter. All right, now we're going to jump into, that was syntax, and we're going to jump now into semantics. What does semantics mean? Now, of course, in semantics, the meaning is associated with the words, symbols, and punctuation making up the language. For example, in Pascal, a semicolon means that the statement is finished. So if you write a line of statement and at the end of the last word you use semicolon, it means that that statement ends. So everything we do has a meaning in when we are using, let's stick with Pascal since Pascal is what we use mostly in CSEC, right? And so in Pascal, we have a program structure, and we begin with the name of the program, followed by begin. Now, begin tells us that we're going to start writing some statements. All right, and whatever we want to produce on the screen, whatever we want to be outputted on the screen, we use write line or write ln to signify that this is what we want to put on the screen. We use the bracket, we put it in bracket, and it's also in quotation. At the end of the bracket, we put the semicolon again because we are finished with that statement, right? And so if you have more than one statements, that is how you're going to write it in your program. And then when the program is, when you are finished writing your statements, you use the word end to signify that your program ends. All right, so here we go. Your program sentence or your block of codes, they are followed by semicolon. And the example shows the word hello and it's followed by your semicolon, which means that you are finished talking right there. You finish writing. That statement ends. Your output statement is whatever you want to be outputted to the screen. It will be produced on the computer screen once you have run the program. Right? So we begin. Um, it tells us that the statements are going to be following below, and right line is whatever you want to be outputted. That's your output statement on the screen, and end is the keyword that we use to show that the program code ends. And here's a simple example, a very popular but simple example of the program, right? Um, in the next video, we are going to be talking about declaring variables and your constants. All right, so we'll look at variables and constants in the next edition. Until then, stick and stay with me. Remember to like, to share the videos, and subscribe. Until then, thank you for watching.